This is the Books Podcast, presented by me, the voiceover guy. Because this episode needs a narrator, a authorial voice, a chronicler, if you will, of what is possibly the oddest book we have featured in this podcast. Because, well, to start with, Tim Haigh is dead. Or so we are told in the early pages of Z is for Zeugma, Tim Haigh's own book. Yes, rising to the if you're so clever, write one yourself, Tim has become critic turned author. Z is for Zeugma is a loosely themed collection of, well, jokes, playful devices, dialogues, setups, and so on. It pretends to be a novel, but it's not really, is it, Tim?
It's not a novel at all, no, it's a book of humour. It's a book of humour, and it's themed because that way you can pretend that you're doing something coherent. But it's not really. It doesn't come to a proper finish or anything, and the characters are there purely for my purposes to amuse myself.
But stuff does happen more or less in an order of events.
It does, yes, because it's sort of a murder mystery, except there's not much mystery, and the victim is, as you say, is the Nobel-worthy literature Tim Haigh.
Now, the book is actually tightly packed sort of joke fest. And I think one reviewer of this book said, if a sentence is not funny, I've clearly missed something. Why? What first gave you the idea for this book?
Well, I had a column, a humorous column in a magazine, which stopped. And I was frustrated. I enjoyed doing, one-off pieces of 1,000 words to be funny. And I was planning to do it as a blog. I thought I'd give myself a blog to do periodical pieces, and that's what I was going to do. But the more and more I wrote it, more and more of the jokes and the pleasantries and the devices that I wanted to use were bookish, inevitably, because that's where I live is the books. So and once I'd done an introduction and had chapters that had only one word, and then had some fake books in at the back, of the ones that you might like to read this one as well. Once I'd done all of that, it wasn't a blog anymore. It really was a book. So I had to print it out and turn it into an actual object.
And as we've said, there's something vaguely resembling a narrative, so it sort of makes sense to have it all in one between two covers. I do enjoy the other books by Tim Haigh at the opening, which is a blank sheet of paper.
That's the sort of thing you can't do on a blog. It's the kind of joke you can only have in a book, where you turn the page. Also by Tim Haigh, and nothing there. Yeah, exactly.
It is quite short.
It is quite short, but I have a theory about humour. People have a limited attention span for humour. I always think, genius though P.G. Wodehouse is, by the time I get to the end of a P.G. Wodehouse novel, I'm exhausted with him, because he's so brilliant that he's overwhelmed me. So I do think that people have, a capacity for humour that is limited. I just wanted this one to be long enough to have a spine that I could get my name printed on the edge of it. I wanted, when you looked at it on the shelf, that you could actually see me. Yeah. But and once I'd got that far, I said, right, fine, finished, and called it done.
It does sort of feel as if you've, as it were, blown your load, because it's packed with so many jokes. Are there any more left? Are you still funny?
No, I'm not funny anymore at all. I had a criterion for inclusion in this book, which was if I thought of a joke, it went in. Whether it was one that only one of my friends would get, or if it was so puerile as to disgrace a Christmas cracker, it went in. That was my sole criterion. And actually, when I was deciding which chapter to write next, it was generally because I had a joke that I wanted to do. I'll do that one, and that will go in this chapter. Right, in that case, we'll do chapter 11, I is for iambic pentameter. So if I had a joke that I wanted to put in that one, that's the chapter I did next.
So is there already a difficult second album, considering there's been quite a difficult first album?
I haven't written anything since, no, but that's all right, as long as this is funny, then that's all it needs to be, because this will have to, stand or fall on its own. So,
in terms of a sort of master plan for the jokes, you were pretty indiscriminate.
Completely indiscriminate. As soon as I had a joke that I this is going to sound so self-regarding. If I had a joke that delighted me for that chapter, right, I've got it. I'm writing that one now. So my idea was that I'd put as many jokes in as I could, but I wanted there to be at least one in every chapter that I went, ooh, yeah, that's good. I'm pleased with that one. One of those, right, I'm taking the afternoon off now jokes. So in every chapter, I wanted to be at least one like that.
And you are prepared to work really quite hard to make a joke. There's one chapter which sets it up in line 1 and delivers in the last 3 words. So you're not above making the reader wait.
Oh, absolutely not. But that's well. If I can refer you back to the epigram, naturally, being a book, it has an epigram, and at the front it says, that a punchline is like an orgasm. It's welcome, obviously, but how you get to it matters. Half the pleasure and half the amusement with some jokes, especially cheap jokes, is how much trouble you go to setting them up.
Now, you say cheap jokes, but actually, I mean, I felt I needed a dictionary and a thesaurus and possibly a glossary to hand. What sort of audience did you have in mind for this?
Me.
Okay.
Me and everybody who knows me. And the only problem is that they've all heard all the jokes before. But that's okay, because, they're old friends, some of them.
Yeah, I suppose. Were you then surprised when people whom you haven't slept with and who don't owe you money found it funny and actually bought it?
Well, flattered. Yes. There's a moment when you finish something, a book or a record or whatever, and you sort of send it out into the world. There is a moment when you feel a total loss of confidence, where you think people are just going to think it's wank. People are going to, look at it and think, oh, well, what a self-regarding, pompous little fool this is. And the moment you've hit send on your computer or dropped the envelope into the post box, your heart sinks and you think, oh God, what have I done? So yeah, when somebody comes back and says, yes, that really made me laugh, that's very reassuring.
So going back to the structure of the book itself, the chapters...
The structure. Yeah, let's do that, yeah.
I use the term quite loosely. The chapters don't come in alphabetical order. Am I supposed to read anything into that?
No, not at all. I was going to do them in alphabetical order, because as you say, it's called Z is for Zeugma. There's a writer called Sue Grafton who does crime novels with alphabetical succession. So she started off with A is for alibi, B is for burglar. This amused me, and I thought that I would do something similar on this with, A is for alliteration, and B is for bathos, and C is for catachresis, and all of that. And I had intended to follow the alphabet until I wrote the first line for H is for hyperbole, which was, this most marvellous book ever written. And I thought, that's the beginning. So at which point I went, I'm not doing these in alphabetical order anymore. I am doing them in whatever order comes to me.
Is there anything about the book which is not to some extent intended to be funny?
Not a thing. Not one thing. I don't think there's a serious detail in the whole thing. There's not supposed to be.
Good. Now, many of the chapters refer to figures of speech, but not all. Why not? What's that about?
Because I cheat. It's as simple as that. I cheat. If sometimes you'll think, I could do C is for catachresis, which means it's an incorrect use of language. That's what that means. Except that how do you make it funny? And again, the criterion was if I could be amusing, or if I could amuse myself with it, then I used a figure of speech. And if not, then I would cheat.
And it is actually fair to say that I've learned the meaning of a couple of figures of speech, largely despite myself and actually in some ways despite you. Because what you have for each figure of speech is a chapter's worth of examples of what that figure of speech actually does. Was there any element of education in this, or were you simply showing off?
Showing off, yes, but playing. It was just playfulness. Because language and words are delightful in themselves and free. Sometimes you'll use a word and somebody will say, how do you know what that means? Well, it's not a secret. Anybody's allowed to. There's a dictionary. Go and look it up. But they're free. And jokes are free. But it's one of the best things about them.
I have an absolute favourite, which has made me giggle in church, quite literally, and I'm not going to repeat it here because Is it
indelicate?
No, it just has to be read. It's just gorgeous. But do you have a favourite bit or a favourite phrase or chapter or term?
I'm afraid I've got lots. I've got lots of the chapters are my favourite, depending on which one I want, and lots of the little jokes that are there. I'm unreasonably pleased with. There was one in the last chapter, but one D is for denouement. I found myself writing in a new character called Mary Suspect, and I wrote for myself, Mary Suspect was as beautiful as she was wise. Nature can be cruel that way. And yeah, having written that, it made me laugh. And I went, yeah. So that stayed in.
So could you read a little, please?
Oh, yes, I could. That's very good. Yeah.
Z is for Zeugma is published by Green Shoot at £5.99 and is available so far from you. But as new outlets arrive, we will let you know. Tim Haigh, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
That was the Books Podcast with Tim Haigh. The Books Podcast is produced by Green Shoot. You can find out more at www.green-shoot.com, and Tim can be contacted on tim@green-shoot.com. Right, so how was that for you?
Odd, because I'm not used to sitting on this side. The view is a good deal better from this side of the microphone than from the other one.
Thank you. I'll take that as a flirtatious comment, and we'll go with that. Thank you, Tim.
I meant metaphorically, but yes.